Good day, my dear learners. For the course on justice, peace, and ecology. So I base this course from the compendium of the Catechism of the Catholic Church, from the Catechism of the Catholic Church, from the compendium of the Social Doctrine of the Church, from Caritas and Veritate of Pope Benedict XVI, and also Deus Caritas Est from Pope Benedict XVI. Let's begin. What is justice? Justice consists in the firm and constant will to give to others their due. Justice toward God is called the virtue of religion. So sa course na ito, ang unang topic ay justice. Justice, peace, and environment. So ang hustisya, ang karapatan, ay ang firm, hindi yung pabago-bago, firm at constant na kalooban ng pagbibigay sa iba kung ano ang nararapat sa kanila. Yan ang justice. And justice toward God, ang nararapat naman para sa Diyos, ay tinatawag na the virtue of religion. Justice toward man, yung hustisya sa kapwa-tao, disposes one to respect the rights of each. Igalang natin ang karapatan ng bawat isa and to establish in human relationships the harmony that promotes equity with regard to persons and to the common good. The just man, often mentioned in the sacred scripture, is distinguished by habitual, right thinking and the uprightness of his conduct toward his neighbor. So yan ang just man ayon sa Biblia. Kaya sabi ng Book of Leviticus chapter 19 verse 15, "You shall not be partial to the poor." Dahil ba mahirap sila, hindi mo bibigay sa kanila ang hustisya, nagiging partial ka, mas espesyal ang mga mayayaman, or defer to the great. Dapat pantay-pantay. But in righteousness shall you judge your neighbor in justice. Kaya sa Colossians chapter 4 verse 1, sabi ni San Pablo, "Masters, treat your slaves justly and fairly, knowing that you also have a master in heaven." Hindi pa na-abolish ang slavery noon. Sinasabi ni San Pablo na itrato ninyo ang iyong mga alipin na injustice at fair, na knowing na meron rin kayong master in heaven. We are slaves of God, our Father, and our Master. From a subjective point of view, justice is translated into behavior that is based on the will to recognize the other as a person. So lagi nating i-recognize sa iba na sila ay isang tao. Yan man ay mahirap, yan may ay LGBT, LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, ano man mahirap, no? Babae man o lalaki, dapat i-recognize natin sa kanila that they are human persons. Kahit sila ay maitim, sila ay aita, they are human persons. Yan ang subjective point of view ng justice. From an objective point of view, it constitutes the decisive criteria of morality in the intersubjective and social sphere. The Church's social magisterium constantly calls for the most classical forms of justice to be respected. Mayroong tatlong klase o apat na klase ng hustisya. First is the commutative. Second is distributive justice. Third is legal justice. Commutative justice is the virtue that regulates those actions which involve the rights between one individual and another individual. So ito yung justice sa dalawang individual, sa dalawang tao. If a person steals another's money, he or she violates commutative justice, no? One-on-one. Any violation of commutative justice imposes on the guilty party the duty of restitution. Kung nagnakaw ka, ibalik mo. That is the duty of repairing the harm caused. In fact, strictly speaking, only violations of commutative justice give rise to this duty of restitution. Next is the distributive justice, concerns the socially just allocation of resources. Socially just allocation of resources. Hindi pwedeng pinapanigan lang o patronage system dahil ikaw ay bumoto sa akin, ikaw lang ang mabibigyan ng hustisya. Legal justice, the virtue that regulates those actions which society justly requires of the individuals for the common good. According to legal justice, the state may institute just laws and perform such acts as further the welfare of the community, thus import duties, fire and traffic regulations, anti-pollution laws, and similar provisions of the state concern legal justice. Sa itong pang-apat, ang social justice. Ever greater importance has been given to social justice, which represents a real development in general justice, the justice that regulates social relationships according to the criterion of observance of the law. Social justice, a requirement related to the social question, which today is worldwide in scope, concerns the social, political, and economic aspects, and above all, the structural dimension of problems and their respective solutions. Justice is particularly important in the present-day context, where the individual's value of the person, his dignity and his rights, despite proclaimed intentions, are seriously threatened by the widespread tendency to make exclusive use of criteria of utility and ownership. Justice, too, on the basis of this criteria, is considered in a reductionist manner, whereas it acquires a fuller and more authentic meaning in Christian anthropology. Justice, in fact, is not merely a simple human convention, because what is just is not first determined by the law, but by the profound identity of the human being. Huwag nating sabihin na hustisya yan dahil yan ay ginawa ng batas. No. It's not determined by the law. It is determined or it's found in the profound identity of the human being. Justice comes from the human person and not justice comes from the law. Kasi may mga unjust laws. No? Kaya ang karapatan, ang hustisya ay galing sa human person. The full truth about man makes it possible to move beyond a contractualistic vision of justice, which is a reductionist vision, and to open up also for justice the new horizon of solidarity and love. By itself, justice is not enough. No? Hindi pala sapat ang hustisya, pero kailangan natin ng hustisya. Indeed, it can even betray itself, pure justice, unless it is open to that deeper power which is love. Kaya kailangan na magsama ang hustisya at ang pagmamahal. Ubi societas, ibi Jus. Where there is society, there is justice. Every society draws up its own system of justice, to give what is due to the other. Charity goes beyond justice. Ito yung justice and love, because to love is to give, to offer what is mine to the other. Hindi lang yung what is due to the other ang charity. That is justice. Ang charity, ang pagmamahal, is ibibigay mo na yung sa iyo para sa iba. Tulad ng isang nanay, ibibigay niya ang sa kanya para sa kanyang mga anak. But love, charity, never lacks justice. No, kailangan na ang pagmamahal ay meron pa ring katarungan, which prompts us to give the other what is his. Because before you can give what is yours, you have to give what is his muna. What is due to him by reason of his being or his acting. Before you can love the other, you must first give what is due to him. That is justice. Before love, there must be justice first. Hindi pwede magkakaroon ng love na walang hustisya or justice. I cannot give what is mine to the other without first giving him what pertains to him in justice. If we love others with charity, then first of all, we are just towards them. Kailangan na maging husto, just tayo sa iba bago natin sila mamahalin. Not only is justice not extraneous to charity, not only is it not an alternative or parallel path to charity, justice is inseparable from charity and intrinsic to it. There is no true love without justice, and there is no true justice without love. Justice is the primary way of charity. It's the first step towards charity. In Pope Paul VI's words, the minimum measure of love is justice, an integral part of the love in deed and in truth, to which St. John exhorts us. On the one hand, charity demands justice, recognition and respect for the legitimate rights of individuals and peoples. It strives to build the earthly city according to law and justice. On the other hand, kailangan ng pagmamahal ang hustisya, pero ang charity transcends justice and completes it. Kasi kulang, it's not enough in the logic of giving and forgiving. Tulad ng isang tao na pinatay niya ang iyong anak, of course, out of justice, ay kukulong siya. But with love, you can forgive him. The earthly city is promoted not merely by relationships of rights and duties, but on even greater and more fundamental extent by relationships of gratuitousness, mercy, and communion. Ang relasyon natin dito sa ating lipunan ay hindi lang naibabatay sa karapatan o hustisya. Kailangan din ng pagmamahal, ang gratuity, ang gratuitousness, the giftedness, the importance of gift, mercy, and communion. Charity always manifests God's love in human relationships as well. It gives theological and salvific value to all commitment for justice in the world. Sa Isaiah chapter 32 verse 17, justice will bring about peace, right will produce calm and security. In the letter of James chapter 3 verse 18, and the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace for those who cultivate peace. In order to define more accurately the relationship between the necessary commitment to justice and the ministry of charity, two fundamental situations need to be considered. First, the just ordering of society and the state is a central responsibility of politics. So ang justice ay central responsibilidad ng politika, ng estado, ng gobyerno. As Augustine once said, a state which is not governed according to justice will be just a bunch of thieves. No? Kumpulan ng mga magnanakaw. Ang isang gobyernong hindi nagpapatupad ng karapatan o hustisya. Kaya sabi sa Latin, remota itaque justitia, quid sunt regna nisi magna latrocinia. Fundamental to Christianity is the distinction between what belongs to Caesar and what belongs to God. In other words, the distinction between church and state, or as the Second Vatican Council puts it, the autonomy of the temporal sphere. Sabi ng Matthew chapter 22 verse 21, then repay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God. Kaya ang karapatan ng hustisya ay sentral na misyon ng estado, ng gobyerno, ng politika. At ang pagmamahal, charity and love, we will learn later on, is the main task of the church. The state may not impose religion, yet it must guarantee religious freedom and harmony between the followers of different religions. Narinig niyo the separation between the church and the state. Ibig sabihin, ang estado ay hindi pwedeng mag-impose ng relihiyon. Pero ginagaranti niya ang religious freedom at harmony between the followers of different religions. For her part, the church as the social expression of Christian faith has a proper independence and is structured on the basis of her faith as a community which the state must recognize. The two spheres are distinct, yet always interrelated, the church and the state, justice and love. Justice is both the aim and intrinsic criterion of all politics. Politics is more than a mere mechanism for defining the rules of public life. Its origin and its goals are found in justice, which by its very nature has to do with ethics. The state must inevitably face the question of how justice can be achieved here and now. Yan ang tanong ng Estado, paano ma-achieve ang hustisya ngayon at dito? But this presupposes an even more radical question. What is justice? The problem is one of practical reason. But if reason is to be exercised properly, it must undergo constant purification. Kasi yung reason natin siya ang nagdetermine ng justice, what is due to the other here and now. So kailangan ng reason natin is not clouded with selfish interest, not clouded with feelings or emotions, no? But it must be purified, no? Para ang ating rason, ang politics, is always for the common good. Since it can never be completely free of the danger of a certain ethical blindness caused by the dazzling effect of power. No, you want to have political dynasty, no? And special interest. Kaya kailangan ma-purify ang ating reason para ma-achieve talaga natin ang what is justice, na what is common good sa politics. Here, politics and faith meet. Faith, by its specific nature, is an encounter with the living God, an encounter opening up new horizons, extending beyond the sphere of reason. But it's also a purifying force. Kaya kailangan ng reason ng faith. It's a purifying force for reason itself. Kaya gusto natin ng reason, ang mga politicians, na ma-purify kanilang reason, they need faith. From God's standpoint, faith liberates reason from its blind spots. Yan yung mga blind spots natin, and therefore helps it to be ever more fully itself. Faith enables reason to do its work more effectively and to see its proper object more clearly. This is where Catholic social doctrine has its place. It has no intention of giving the church power over the state. No, walang kapangyarihan ng simbahan sa estado. Even less, it is an attempt to impose on those who do not share the faith ways of thinkings and modes of conduct proper to faith. The aim of the social doctrine of the church is simply to help purify a reason and to contribute here and now to the acknowledgement and attainment of what is just. Kaya ang simbahan ay tumutulong lamang sa estado o sa gobyerno o sa mga politiko para ma-achieve nila ang what is just here and now. The church social doctrine, social teaching argues on the basis of reason and natural law, namely on the basis of what is in accord with the nature of every human being. It recognizes that it is not the church's responsibility to make this teaching prevail in political life. Rather, the church wishes to help form consciences in political life and to stimulate greater insight into the authentic requirements of justice as well as greater readiness to act accordingly even when this might involve conflict with situations of personal interest. Ang misyon ng simbahan, ang kanyang social doctrine is to form consciences. Building a just social and civil order wherein each person receives what is his or her due is not the work of the church. It is an essential task which every generation must take up anew. As a political task, this cannot be the church's immediate responsibility. Yet, since it's also a most important human responsibility, the church is duty-bound to offer, through the purification of reason and through ethical formation, her own specific contribution towards understanding the requirements of justice and achieving them politically. The church cannot and must not take upon herself the political battle to bring about the most just society possible. So hindi natin trabaho yan na membro ng simbahan. She cannot, the church cannot and must not replace the state. Yet at the same time, she cannot and must not remain on the sidelines. So both ends, no? Hindi niya pwedeng i-replace ang state, pero hindi siya pwedeng manahimik, no? In the fight for justice. She has to play her part through rational argument, hindi violence, rational argument. And she has to reawaken the spiritual energy without which justice, which always demands sacrifice, cannot prevail and prosper. A just society must be the achievement of politics, not of the church. No? Ang just society ay kailangan ang politika, ang estado, ang gobyerno mag-achieve niyan at hindi ang simbahan. Yet, the promotion of justice through efforts to bring about openness of mind and will to the demands of the common good is something which concerns the church deeply. So yun ang justice. Ngayon pupunta tayo sa love, caritas, kasi incomplete ang justice. It's not enough. Love, caritas will always prove necessary even in the most just society. Meron bang isang lipunan na really the most just society na hindi na kailangan ng pagmamahal? There is no ordering of the state so just that it can eliminate the need for a service of love. Whoever wants to eliminate love is preparing to eliminate man as such. Justice cannot achieve everything. It needs love. There will always be suffering which cries out for consolation and help. There will always be loneliness na hindi to kayang i-address ng justice. There will always be situations of material need where help in the form of concrete love of neighbor is indispensable. The state which will provide everything, absorbing everything into itself, will ultimately become a mere bureaucracy incapable of guaranteeing the very thing which a suffering person, every person needs, namely loving personal concern. We do not need a state which regulates and controls everything. Mahirap din ang estado na nire-regulate niya, kinokontrol niya lahat. But a state which in accordance with the principle of subsidiarity, sana natutunan ninyo ito nung first semester sa social teaching of the church, yung subsidiarity, generously acknowledges and supports initiatives arising from the different social forces and combines spontaneity with closeness to those in need. The church is one of those living forces. Dito galing sa baba sa subsidiarity. She is alive with the love enkindled by the Spirit of Christ. This love does not simply offer people material help, but refreshment and care for their souls, something which often is even more necessary than material support. In the end, the claim that just social structures will make works of charity superfluous masks a materialist conception of man. The mistaken notion that man can live by bread alone, conviction that demeans man, and ultimately disregards all that is specifically human. In fact, the Church's social doctrine places alongside the value of justice that of solidarity. So hindi lang justice, kailangan rin ang solidarity. I hope you remember your first semester course, no, about the principle of solidarity. In that is the privileged way of peace. If peace is the fruit of justice, today one could say with the same exactness and the same power of biblical inspiration, Opus Solidaritatis Pax, peace as the fruit of solidarity. Solidarity is an authentic moral virtue, not a feeling of vague compassion or shallow distress at the misfortunes of so many people, both near and far. Hindi yan ang solidarity yung naawa ka lang. On the contrary, ang solidarity is a firm and persevering determination to commit oneself to the common good. That is to say, to the good of all and each individual, because we are all really responsible for all. The goal of peace, in fact, will certainly be achieved through the putting into effect of social and international justice, but also through the practice of the virtues which favor togetherness and which teach us to live in unity, so as to build in unity by giving and receiving a new society and a better world. So hopefully, my dear learners, you learn something from this, the content of justice. And so the next PowerPoint presentation and this YouTube presentation will be about the virtue or the value or the topic about peace. So justice, peace, and environment. Hope to see you once again in the next YouTube presentation and in the next PowerPoint presentation. See you and belated Happy Valentine's to all.